welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined again immediately on tonight's special Paradopes double feature.
Paradopes.
Yeah, we're doing all things submarine hardos. Rejoined by my friend and co-host,
Kevin Weinman.
All right, guys, so I hope that you all listened to our The Hunt for Red October podcast, and I hope you loved it. I always think the double features work well if you listen to them back to back, man, kind of connective tissue between the shows. So we did Hunt for Red October. Now we are moving on, diving on, as it were, to Crimson Tide. As always, if you like the show, please take a second to leave us a rating and review, especially on Apple Podcast app. That means the world to a show like ours. Helps us track, get on metrics and all that. Also, you can find us on any social media you're at. Give us the ideas for movies you'd like to see covered, double features, monthly themes, anything like that. If you want to hear us talk about it, we want to talk about it. Also, you can see our faces on YouTube. Our channel is called Nerd Alchemist. That's plural with an S at the end. All right, Weinman, you hit me up with two in a row that I had never seen. Hunt for Red October was the movie I feared it was, but ended up liking, right? That was the movie I thought both of these would be. When I finished Crimson Tide, I was fucking ashamed of myself that I had not seen Crimson Tide yet. Yeah. It is such a perfectly crafted movie for me, and I don't know how I missed it for like 20 years. So walk me through why Crimson Tide for you. Okay.
So going back to, and again, I encourage everybody to listen to that first podcast of Hunt for October.
Listen.
This again was another movie that I really bonded with my dad about, because apparently my dad is a very big fan of submarines.
Your dad has some kind of naval fantasy.
I guess so, dude. and anyways,
he likes what is that movie, The Last Duty or The Last Tour with Nicholson, where they're like seamen trying to get to the last detail. Yeah. Ask him if he likes The Last Detail. I bet he does.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it if you didn't say my dad and seamen in the same sentence. But like, I think one of the things that I really loved about this movie, again, going back to the whole Hunt for October thing, is that you're compartmentalized into creating a really great atmosphere that's really intense. And again, it's a thriller. A lot of submarine movies need to be labeled as thrillers because the action is really limited.
Yeah.
You only have so much of an opportunity. So one of the things I loved about this movie is that this was like, if Hunt for October was my introduction, this was like me joining the fraternity of submarine movies. Right. Like this was
you're a submarine guy.
Yeah,
now.
this really dives you into it. So I think,
like your father before you, now you do submarine movies.
And again, this is the so anybody that's actually kept up to speed about Josh and I so far.
This was 1995, by the way.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if you're brought up to speed about the movies that we've done so far, we've done Days of Thunder together, and we've also done Top Gun. So apparently we really like Tony Scott. So what Tony Scott brings to this is that you not only have a submarine movie, but he always pulls in the framing very intensely. So this was a perfect film for him, where he had these shots that were, again, condensed, but he made a lot of action happen in them. And he created a lot of really intense moments in those shots. Right?
Absolutely.
And again, we hate Russians, so that's a great theme. But to wrap this all up, the reason why I love this is just because it is a more intense, more broified version of a submarine movie.
Broified, interesting. Okay.
In my opinion, this is taking every single lever off of, like, oh, you got to know about naval tactics. Yeah. You don't have to know a damn thing about naval tactics. This is just about whether or not we're going to blow up the world in two guys fighting against each other, and that's what I loved about it.
Right. And I think that's what this movie benefits from over Red October in a way, is what it does is it brings it down to a level that every single person can just relate to, right? When it's all on the line, you have to make a fucking choice. And what choice do you make? And I think that is what this movie does it so unbelievably well. And I'm with you. Every time they cut out of the submarine, you're like, oh, cool, the bubbles and the missing, right? Like, great. Not exciting, right? but a Tony Scott close-up of James Gandolfini sweating.
Correct.
Almost titillated.
Correct.
That he's about to get to shoot someone and end the world.
Yep.
Has so much drama that it's unbelievable. And I think that's because Red October spends a lot of time away from the submarines, right? And they're like, they turn the submarines into pawns on a chessboard and say, all of mankind and everything we've created is just pieces in a game. And you can lose that game. What Red October does is it brings it way fucking down to a very personally small level and says, you are either a person, and it's really great because what The Dark Knight did this, right? And it's a concept from game theory, right? If you're a board gamer like me or whatever, you know what game theory is. And in game theory, there's something called the prisoner's dilemma, which is where your fate is inextricably in the hands of another person, right? And the easiest way to explain this to people is the Dark Knight, right? The Joker scene. There are two boats. Each boat has the detonator for a bomb that's on the other boat. Do you not press the button and hope that both boats safely arrive at the harbor? Or do you blow their fucking boat up before you do? And that in game theory is called the prisoner's dilemma. And that is what Crimson Tide is.
To a T.
But to the absolute most maximum terrifying version of that.
Everyone
to even
dies.
use the term game theory in nuclear which I love that Denzel makes that clear. Because I told you, I hate military movies that kind of wash away the awfulness, right? They remove the warts of what war really is.
That's right.
And Denzel himself, right, the leading character who we adore, says about 5 times, it's not nuclear war, it's nuclear holocaust.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Our
war insinuates that one of
meet-
us will win.
He does that moment where he goes, our birds meet each other in the air.
Yes,
Boom.
yes, bitch. God damn. So that, on a principle, it's just a brilliant, and you do you're like, God damn, like just putting characters that are so strong in a submarine and letting the pressure cook and watching them. The action is not what they're physically doing. The action is, what does it take for you to push your ethical dilemma all the way to the breaking point?
Right.
And will you or won't you, right? And I think that is what, it's amazing that this movie, to me, is more action-packed and exciting than Hunt for Red October, when it really is just dudes running around a metal tube.
Yeah.
That is really the entire movie.
It's crazy.
But it feels so fucking tense. It feels like Seven, where you're just like, oh, God, it's so scary and everything's horrible.
Yeah, so let me give a little bit of context for the movie, because we're going to bounce a lot back and forth from different scenes.
We will.
So, in essence, Denzel gets brought on to the USS Alabama along with Gene Hackman, because Gene Hackman's CO can't make it on. He got sick, right? So he can't go on this tour. So they get Denzel. He was highly, in one of my favorite moments, he was like, hey, you came highly on the list. And he was like, great. He goes, short list. I was like, that's a great Gene Hackman fuck you moment.
I love that you said that, because this is a question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Did Gene Hackman choose Denzel?
Yeah.
Or was he chosen for him?
The
fact that he...
Yeah.
Because to imagine a guy like... sorry if you hear screaming in the background. That's my kids. This is not actually World War III breaking down. So imagine a world, right?
Yeah.
Where Gene Hackman reads the files, has all this knowledge, and chooses Denzel on what he thinks is going to be his opportunity to finally launch the missile.
Yes.
Right? Do you think he actually chose Denzel, or that was told to him unless there's a glaringly obvious thing you can find?
He chose it because he felt like he could manipulate him, because he's a pretty...
You think so?
Yeah, totally.
I watched it and I was like,
but I also don't think that Gene was going into this thinking he was going to shoot missiles. I just think that Gene...
I feel like he fucking did, man.
I think that Gene went into it knowing that... all right, well, it's not like you and I don't agree, but I think that he felt like if this guy was going on this submarine with him, he was going to be able to go and convince him that his way was the right way.
No, and you're not wrong, and I don't disagree. But the movie actually backs up that theory a little bit when he pulls Denzel into his private quarters and he's like, "Hey, man, you can disagree with me, just not in front of those fucking guys."
Yeah. Right.
So there is this sense that Denzel is crossing lines he didn't know that he would, and he's redrawing boundaries, right? What I thought, I watched it as a scene where someone told him, "Hey, man, you're taking this guy. He's moving up the ladder."
Right.
Because Denzel on paper is just everything that Gene Hackman is against, right?
Yes.
And not for some. What I love about this movie more than anything, I'll tell you the thing I love most is Gene Hackman is not just an irrational madman.
Right.
If this movie is just an irrational madman who's like, I train so I can blow up the fucking world. Like,
He loses every bit of credibility that you want to hold him to.
Yeah. If you
like
make him Nicholson in A Few Good Men, right? Which Nicholson, again, has his reasons for his character.
Yeah.
That mindset doesn't work with Gene Hackman. This movie goes to painstaking lengths to let us know Gene Hackman thinks he is saving the world.
I can't stress enough how much I love that part of it because, like,
Absolutely.
it really makes you conflicted. In my notes that I have to you is, are you a Gene Hackman backer? Are you a Denzel backer if you're on the sub?
Right. Well, again, that's why I think...
And by the way...
That's why I think Gene Hackman would not choose him.
Let me finish this out. So, he goes... They're both on the submarine, and then at one point, they get a message saying that they're fueling missiles. There's a guy...
time.
Yeah, there's a guy that has taken over Russia that effectively is going to fire missiles as soon as they're locked and loaded. They get a notification they're fueling them. Then a notification comes back while they're being attacked. It gets cut off. Effectively, they know that something's happened, but they don't know what's happened. So Denzel's much more on the realm of, I don't want nuclear holocaust. I don't want it to happen. Gene's like, they're going to blow up the United States of America. I'm patriotic. Fuck you. We're going to fire.
And who could blame him?
Again,
who could blame him?
So me being the passive, liberal, tree-hugging guy that I was when I was a kid, and I still am, I looked at it where I was like, Denzel's right 1,000% of the way. But, like, being an adult now, like, I get where he is very passionate, where he's like, people that I care about might be dying right now because I didn't make this decision. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And so just to give more context to what we're about to talk about, you're going to see that there's a give and take with a lot of these characters about not only do I care about my cause, but the world's what happens in the world is predicated on my decision, and anyone that backs me is going to feel that same way.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you take this movie from young guy who knows everything fights delusional madman, it's not interesting.
Right.
The fact, even at the end of the movie, right, the tribunal says you were both wrong and you were both fucking right.
Yep.
That's what makes this movie interesting because, again, this gets back a little bit. It's another philosophy. I read a lot of philosophy, even though I'm too dumb to understand it, right? I like to expand my mind into things I can't understand. So like, if I gain like 0.5%, that's better, right? Right? That's better than reading another Star Wars novel,
right,
which is where the age I'm at. And this is called, it's the cave delusion, right? So 3 men are locked in a cave. And the only connection they have to an outside world are shadows they see from sunlight casting shadows into their cave. So they can see like, giant fucking shadows, right? And they assume there are monsters out there. Eventually they are freed from their shackles and they can go outside of the cave. And they see, oh, it's just a world of like normal shit. But they get scared and think it's a lie, right? Because it's not the world they've always known, which is, you know, has the protective boundary of the shadow on the wall. So they run back into the cave and choose to watch shadows on the wall rather than partaking in this real world where everything's unknown. And I think this movie does it so well, which is the movie never stops and says, if you're a fucking anti-violence pacifist liberal, right? Or you're the craziest America first, we're going to fuck everyone up in war, you know, guy, you're wrong. Because this is, I mean, this, what Denzel says that I think I side with Denzel too, right? Which is, he said, has that amazing, this movie's full of amazing lines, but the line at the end, where Gene Hackman just looks at him, he goes, God help you if you're wrong. Right. And Denzel looks back at me, he's like, God help me. If I'm wrong, we're at war, and God help us all. Yeah. And I literally just got chills because I was like, oh
it's
my fucking.
It's such a great moment.
And it gets you back to this theory, right? Of if an eye for an eye leaves the world blind, right? Like if Russia did that to us and they blew up everything. Yeah. Is there really a lot of value to us to just fucking blow them off the map and kill a bunch of their because that's what you. And this movie gets back to, and it has what I love, which is the title card at the start, which is right, the 3 most powerful men in the world, right? America's leader, Russian leader.
I've got that in my top note.
Yeah. Commander of a U.S.
And I'm like, is that fucking true?
I don't know if it's true, but this movie makes you think it is.
I know.
Right?
I know. In that moment, I was like, oh, fuck you, man.
I totally bought it.
I was like, not the vice
holy
president.
Shit.
I don't know.
I was like, I believe Gene Hackman's the third strongest man in the world for sure. But that's what is fucking this movie really gives you, in a movie like this, right? A taut fucking, and this thing, I wouldn't even call this an action movie, right? To me, this is a fucking like ethical thriller, right? I don't even know if that's a genre. It reminds me of this movie reminds me more of Glengarry Glen Ross than Hunt for Red October.
Wait, I was about to say, how is this not Hunt for October? This is an ethical dilemma with
Right.
people at high positions making decisions on whether or not they should go and blow up the world.
But again, this is people up here deciding what us lowly, that's like kind of the thing about, right? The rich old men decide which poor soldiers will die. This movie's not like that. This says, hey man, we're in our own world. That sub is a microcosm of the planet Earth, right? And we will decide based on the totality of our experience of humanity, right? What world we will live in future. And they let people have an organic, actually believable reaction to the enormity of the thought that, oh my God, the Russians are fueling rockets.
Right.
And you are left with, how many fucking times a year does this exact thing happen? Where, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And you just pray there's a guy who can stop and think about it, man. And again, not in a way that makes Gene Hackman the bad guy.
Right.
Right? Not until the end of the movie do you know who's right or wrong.
Yeah. With the way that this movie delivers, you know that you're gonna end up trying to side with Denzel because you open on his daughter's birthday, and they're trying to connect you with Denzel, but there's also that's what's exciting is that as soon as they get down to it, you know that there's an ethical dilemma, and that you can absolutely look at the side of Gene Hackman and go, ooh, like, I don't know, man. You should probably fire those rockets.
Sure. But this is why this movie is so brilliant, and it actually could not work without that exact setup. Because this is a movie, and I would argue Red October very similar. I knew every single thing that was going to happen before it happened. Mm-hmm. You know that Denzel's going to fight the captain. You know they're not launching nukes. You know there won't be nuclear war. Right. You know Denzel will be right. Okay? Titanic's like that. I know it's going to hit that fucking iceberg, and a lot of people are going to die, and some people are going to fucking float away. In a movie where there's no confusion as to what will actually physically happen, the amount of tension and suspense that they build, predicated simply on, here are two completely rational decisions.
Right.
And you fucking decide. It was honestly breathtaking to me watching. I was so jealous of this script as I watched the movie. You're like, fuck, if only I could write something that good. Because again, I love any movie that says there aren't bad guys, there are humans. Right? And in any given circumstance, we could be the good or bad guy based on our fucking predetermined bullshit. It's crazy. This movie has no fucking drama in the whole movie. Imagine this. Is there one thing that happened in that movie you're like, well, that was confusing?
No.
Like at one point they stop and they're like, oh, they're shooting rockets at us. I'm like, yeah, I bet they're going to blow Denzel up 40 minutes into the movie. I bet that's something that'll happen. Of course it won't.
No.
But that is then used as Denzel can now present us with a new fucking ethical dilemma based on what just happened. Because Denzel saved the ship, but we lost steering. Well, we're sinking, so that's Denzel's fault. Now it's believable that we're having a dilemma.
The part that you just brought up was the writing for this. So just to let the listeners know, Quentin Tarantino was an uncredited writer.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. Tarantino and Tony Scott had worked together, obviously, years earlier in True Romance. He really believed that what he had to write was important and it was going to bring context. Also, side note, Denzel confronted Tarantino on the set because I don't know. I don't know if you know this, but Tarantino tends to write pretty incendiary literature about race.
Yeah.
And so there's
he goes there. He goes there.
Yeah. So he there was Tarantino had requested that their argument be privately recorded. Denzel did not give a shit and said no. So Denzel let people know that they hashed it out and everything's fine. And as a matter of fact, Denzel Washington's daughter, I think, was in the Django Unchained movie. So like
Right.
she's actually, so they're fine. Point being though is that when you have a guy like Tarantino anywhere near the literature of your film, and your film is a thriller on a submarine, there's going to be a lot of really great dialogue.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt was so great about this movie, is that when they pulled each other into rooms, they weren't just trying to convince that person in the scene.
Right.
They were convincing you.
Yeah.
Like, there's a moment in this movie where all of the people that are very passionate about Gene Hackman pull Viggo Mortensen into a room to convince him that they are right and Gene is right and that you should be on our side. And that dialogue makes you think it's like, God, that's absolutely like what we should be doing right now.
Right.
And it's very few and far between movies where you're like, the bad guy, the quote unquote bad guy in the movie could be right. In that moment, you're like, yeah, man, fueling missiles they're going to kill our families. They're going to blow up our country. Like, Denzel's the one that's wrong. That's when you say Denzel's wrong, you know your movie's got a lot of conflict in it.
When you say Denzel is the limp dick liberal, that's how you know, man, this is a strong cast. But what you hit on is actually, it's one of the great fucking techniques of this movie. Because imagine, right, just as human beings, they have conversation with her. The physical act of, hey, can you come over here so other people can't hear? You are intentionally, right? And whether, maybe not intentionally, but you are absolutely admitting that you do not have conviction in what you're saying. You do not have absolute conviction. And this movie exists completely in that gray area. And that's what makes it work.
Right.
The moment this movie or the filmmaker takes a pro or anti-war stance, it no longer works. Right? Because I think you could argue that the movie takes an anti-war stance by the fact that they're telling the movie where the sub doesn't launch the nukes. But I think it's also presenting in an unstereotypical way Gene Hackman's side. You start this movie off and you're like, I would fucking do anything for Gene. When he walks up, right, this is the scene I fucking adore, right? And to get your Tarantino thing, there is a lot of like race stuff bubbling.
A lot.
But what they did is they put it in the set. Like Gandolfini, like, hey, get that big guy to do push-ups and this and that. You just get the like...
Is he going to fit on the sub?
Yeah, something else extra is going on. He's extra mad about it, but we don't have to do it. And they do that a couple times, right? Like when the young black officer sees Denzel and he just looks at him with absolute pride, you're like, you can read more into that for sure. But what they do, the moment that like solidifies Gene Hackman is like,
Literally
this is no longer like a war crazy stereotype.
Right.
When he walks in, and they're all standing in the rain, and he walks in with this little tiny fucking dog, right? And he's like, I'm fucking bringing a dog on a sub. That's how badass I am. I'm the fucking cigar smoking little tiny dog.
I bring Wishbone on this thing.
Yeah, fuck yeah. By the way, his dog has the same name as my dog, Bear. But his dog is very little. My dog is fucking enormous, right? Which I loved. And that's how they also were totally like, hey, he's not a bad warmonger. He's a dog person, right? He's not if he was a cat person, you'd be like, fuck Gene Hackman.
They humanized the villain quickly in this movie. Yeah. That's why I loved it.
If Gene Hackman had a cat on a leash, you're like, of course this guy's
Fuck
wrong.
him.
Yeah, of course he's wrong.
Ugh.
But
what an asshole.
It's so, the way he talks to those men, he legitimately cares about the men. He legitimately cares about his country and the mission and the Navy. Right? And that's so important in that scene because you see these guys laughing, like running onto the sub. Later, you see the divergence between him and Denzel is like he's more willing to, when Denzel's like, hey man, I think these guys are fraying. He's like, fuck them. I will break. If they're going to break, they should be broken and get out of the way. But that's not where they start. Right? And that's really important to the Gene Hackman character. I feel like they don't take, because so many movies like this, I think, fall on the, I'm just a bad guy who wants to fucking start shit. And that's really not who Gene Hackman ever is.
But there's God, the side characters play so much in this, though. Like, the side characters are
honestly,
so good in it.
If you told me this was a top 10 greatest cast of all time in a movie, I'd be like, yeah, maybe. Fucking Ryan Phillippe's like a radio extra.
Ryan Phillippe's first major motion picture film.
By the way, if you're a Sopranos fan, Matt Bevilacqua, right? That's the guy who saves the entire world as Matthew Bevilacqua, right? Ryan Phillippe is an extra to him.
All right. So for the 2 people that watch this on YouTube, I have in my notes
2 million.
I go, Vossler saves the world.
Yeah.
Vossler, literally, if he doesn't get the radio back on, we're just firing nukes. And Vossler Bevilacqua is the dude.
You know what I love about this too is that this movie was so ahead of its time, where it's like, you can imagine that someone saw Clerks and they're like, we got to do a rewrite where we put some fucking pop culture in. Because how does Denzel reach the 2 men that saved the world, right? Is he's like,
I can't believe we're
let's have a Silver Surfer reference.
Can we jump here?
We can
real
jump
quick?
wherever the fuck we want, dude.
All right.
We are captains of our own ship.
So let me.
If we were the 2 captains, would you be Denzel or would Hackman? Who would I be?
Can we take it down a notch?
I think I'm a Hackman.
Listen, that you literally just served us the entree. We're still on the appetizer.
All right.
Like
I'm fine to nibble. Let's nibble.
I wrote very important. I go, who won the Silver Surfer battle? In your opinion,
Yeah.
Kirby Silver Surfer, is it better than Mobius?
Let me put it this way. If this is what decided the fate of the world, we would have had nuclear Armageddon.
Oh, no.
And I'm not saying Denzel's wrong, but to dismiss out of hand Mobius's contributions to the Silver Surfer is such a fucking 90s thing to do.
Interesting.
It's grotesque. But then he saves himself he reaches out. By the way, I didn't believe for a second that Mac Bevilacqua was like, hey, yeah, I watch Star Trek. Hey, yo, of course I watch Star Trek every week. Yo, right? Like, that guy's not watching Star Trek and understanding who Scotty and Captain Kirk are.
Hey,
yeah, I was like, this shit
talk
works
to my
on
old
Sopranos.
family on a weekly basis on this on these shows.
I also hate the Romulans. Hey, right? Like, the Andrew Dice Clay who loves Star Trek didn't work for me.
Okay.
But I love the fact that Denzel's like this, hey, man, I'm just cool with everyone. Right? Like, he can do the fact. I just love the idea that some executive didn't be like, what the fuck is a Mobius? Like, the fact that made it into the script is so ahead of its time and amazing.
Let's be honest. That's probably where Denzel, or Quentin Tarantino probably had a little bit of say.
I'm interested if it was him, because this is an honest question to you, right? I run a comic book podcast, and as you can see, maybe by the shelf over here, I'm like super comic book nerd. Did you have any fucking idea what they were talking about anytime you watched this?
Unfortunately, the first time I watched it, no.
Yeah, right?
Because I'm a kid. And even while I was growing up, I had to go and search on the interwebs to understand what that meant.
You had to dial up who the fuck Mobius was.
The thing that I appreciated about the what I found out later was that Kirby, the people that are diehard Kirby, it's like, this is the origin as opposed to a new story.
Right.
And Mobius was just trying to...
well, what is wrong with those people is that they're like, Kirby made it so he's the only one that can do it. And if you read comic books, you know the whole genesis is to make something so great that other people want to partake. I think it was Paul Schrader, right? Famous fucking screenwriter. Who said screenwriting or scripts are not art. They are invitations for other artists to come collaborate on art. Right? That's what it... Because screenplay is the lowest form of writing. Because you're just writing so that other artists can come put their... Like, you don't write a screenplay and say, hey, in Touch of Evil, I'm going to tell you every fucking crane movement, right? You don't do that. In this movie, you don't tell Tony Scott or whoever how to direct a movie.
Right.
You just let them fucking do it, right?
Right.
And so that's how I look at the Silver Surfer debate. I know people watching this might actually want to hear my opinions on this.
I do want... I mean, I wrote that down as one of my biggest notes.
It struck me, though, is, again, it was another slap in the face to me because it's... How the fuck did I not see this movie until 2020? Like, it made me fucking fear. You're like, the world could end in like 8 months, and I might not ever have seen Crimson Tide unless you chose to watch it. That made me depressed.
Let me help you out with something real quick. And this is a complete aside, but listen, the reason why this moment resonates with me is, again, I go back to the fact that I watched this a lot. Danny Nucci is the guy that plays the role of Navetti, the guy that he's trying to talk off the ledge. That guy, at that moment, when I first saw this movie, I thought he was going to be the next big thing because his...
Really?
I'll explain why. I'll explain why. Danny Nucci, here's the progression of movies. So tell me whether or not, number one, whether or not you know the movie, whether or not you like it.
Sure.
Danny Nucci was in Alive.
I fucking love Alive.
Then he was in Crimson Tide.
Okay, love Crimson Tide.
Then he was in Titanic.
Eh.
And then he was in Eraser.
Eraser? Oh, he's back up. I love it. I love Eraser.
Yeah.
If you took a poll of like top 1% of people that love Eraser, it's me and my brother. We love Eraser. I love that shit.
So
Arnold in like hard sci-fi, like high concept.
Danny Nucci has not been hard pressed for roles, but ever since then he's been on every single NCIS, CSI, SVU show that you can imagine. And I looked this up because like he was an important person in my life. During this movie, I was like, why isn't Danny Nucci more, like, why isn't he not accredited as being a number one player?
Yeah.
There's a reason. He's a side character.
Yeah, you're like, no one wants to actually know the difference between Kirby and Mobius.
No.
They just want to talk to Denzel Washington.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the fucking giant difference.
Yeah. So I love myself some Danny Nucci, if you guys are wondering. I think he's a great actor.
Dude, but by the way, this movie, here are extras in this movie. Ryan Phillippe. And, like, backing up Matt
the very first movie he's ever done.
Fucking Steve Zahn. Right? Who went on for, like, Saving Silverman fame and, like, a ton of great roles.
And got shot in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he's just there.
Yep.
Right? Viggo Mortensen, Gandolfini, Gene Hackman, fucking... I'm going to forget something, right? It's just going to happen. You know the guy who I think is the secret stud of the movie? Is the massively overweight $5 haircut commander of the boat. Chief of the Watch, is that what they call him?
George Zunga.
I'm so glad we live in a world with George Zungas. Like, that's just, there are just guys, and I talked about this earlier, there are some guys, like, you watch Denzel in this movie, and what I really love about this movie is it has this great subtext of, this is Gene Hackman, arguably the best actor of his generation, right? Like, I think it's like him and Nicholson are like neck and neck.
Yeah.
But Gene Hackman's better at an everyman, and Nicholson has that little extra character thing, right? I think it's like the difference between like a Brad Pitt and like Leo, right? Like Leo can go that extra weirdness without losing.
Brad's just consistent.
Yeah. Brad's just there. Like Tom Cruise the same way. Like he's Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And then Magnolia, and then
I think
a
that's
bunch
a great
of Tom
analogy.
Cruise, right?
Yeah.
But Gene Hackman is arguably the best actor of his generation.
Yep.
And he literally is just going toe to toe with the best actor of his generation. And to me, if you would argue that Denzel is not the best actor of his generation, you are so wrong. Like, to me, it's, and I love Tom Hanks, right? And that's the only guy who would even get close. But to me, it's not even a race. It's not, because you could say Daniel Day-Lewis came, like, a little bit after, Denzel staked his flag. But you're like, he's doing different movies than, like, I am the fucking king shit of Movie Star Mountain. And this is a fascinating thing I was going to tell you. I watched this documentary called They've Gotta Have Us. And it's a documentary on Netflix, right? It's 3 episodes. You should watch this. It's really fascinating. I love watching documentaries about the process of making movies, right? But the whole documentary is kind of about the history of African Americans in Hollywood and, how the struggle to get roles and certain movies that got made that changed everything. Side note, they have a really funny bit where they have Jesse Smollett or Smollier, whatever his name is. Yeah, and he's like, I understand how hard it was for Sydney and the doors he opened for me. And you're like, whoops, should have edited that shit out. Right? But they had this amazing moment. They talk about Denzel, right? So Denzel did Malcolm X.
Yeah.
And immediately people are like, look at this motherfucker. Like, this guy can act. That movie's, if you've never seen Malcolm X, it is like, it's one of those things that, like, if Thor shot you with the lightning from his hammer, that's Malcolm X, right? You just watch it and you're like, holy shit.
But let's give him, he was established before that. That was his rocket.
That was the moment, though, where you're like,
because Glory was really where.
Yeah, that was like this guy can really act. And then when he did Malcolm, you're like, oh, he can act in the lead.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But people still thought, oh, he can only do Malcolm because that's a black movie, right? And some of these people, and They've Gotta Have Us, they talked about, they lumped all stories with black people into black cinema, right? So whether it was Amistad or Boys in the Hood, those were the same movies to Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they talked about this, once Boys in the Hood and Juice and all these movies hit, they only wanted black people to read for, like, tough guy gangster roles, right? South Central roles or whatever they called them in the documentary. There's a great moment in it, though, and it's such a great nugget that I had never heard before. But apparently Denzel Washington went to his agent right around this time, right? Right after Malcolm X. And he said, hey, man, send me every script that Harrison Ford turns down.
Ooh.
right? And right after this, you've got like Much Ado About Nothing, Philadelphia, Crimson Tide, and you're like, when you look at it through that vein, where he's
Great
like,
idea.
don't cast me as the black guy, cast me as the exact same thing as Harrison Ford, the insanely charismatic leading man who has
Such a smart
power
way to
emanating from my pores. When you look at his career in that phase of the 90s, through the what if Harrison Ford had said yes phase, like imagine this movie or Philadelphia with Harrison Ford instead, and you're like, oh fuck, I can see that. Imagine Witness with Denzel. You're like, oh fuck, I can see that. And that, when I heard that in that documentary, it fucking blew my mind. I never heard that before. But this movie, of all the movies in that era, this is the movie that feels like a perfect Harrison Ford vehicle that Denzel. I'm so glad we got Denzel doing it, though.
So let me throw this out.
Yeah, man.
I've got it on my phone right now, but the role of Gene Hackman was incredibly important in terms of who
The most important role in the movie.
It was very important in terms of who the other person was. I feel like when they were casting it, Denzel was definitely a front runner. But in your opinion, and I know I'm pulling on this a little bit early, if you had someone else play Gene Hackman's role, who else do you think was up for it?
In that phase, honestly, no one, man. Like,
Okay.
Gene Hackman to me is in like Mount Rushmore of, it's like him and Cary Grant. Like I have a couple, maybe Nicholson, but you're like, those guys are unassailable.
So
because Gene Hackman, and especially because what I love about this is instead of being the guy that looks like a villain, right, the maniacal fucking sub captain, Gene Hackman is the absolute best. He looks like someone you would know actor.
And not only that,
Absolutely
somebody
best.
that you worked for, somebody you've
Right.
respected, someone you've appreciated.
Yeah.
Like
this
he
feels like
filled
it
a
could
lot
have
of
been like a
roles.
De Niro role, right?
So
but this Gene Hackman's better.
the two people, Warren Beatty,
No.
Al Pacino.
I almost said Pacino, but I was like, he's so bombastic. It's like, why launch nukes when you have a fucking Al Pacino delivery?
So here's the world. Here's the world in a mirror world. Yeah, like
that makes me laugh. I love that.
No. Think of it this way. All right. So there was a moment when if Pacino accepts this role, the guy in the other role. Do you know who? There was. It was predicated. If Pacino took that role, there was another guy for Denzel's.
I imagine. Oh my god.
I mean,
the
think
long
about
shot is like Marky Mark.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Is it Edward Norton?
No,
This is before Edward Norton had his moment.
It's Brad Pitt.
What the fuck? Brad Pitt is the Denzel role?
That's exactly what was going to happen because Brad Pitt had always wanted to work with Al Pacino. So this was almost a Pacino-Pitt scenario. And FYI, so much better. That there's not only... It's not only Hackman and Denzel, but for me, I feel like the racial tension is actually palpable. Like
It's
that's
very important.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing. Again, I'm sure whatever Tarantino wrote was probably a little more on the nose. Like I saw Hateful Eight, and I was like, I don't need an extended cut. I don't need 200 more N-words.
Let me throw this out there: the Lipizzaner stallions that they talk about. There is an underbelly of racism.
They don't start white. Yeah, man.
And
he talks about how they can follow any order with the but this
and just in a heads up, both of them are wrong. That horse is Slovenian.
That mattered to me. I'm glad you brought that up. That's wildly important.
They're both wrong.
What this movie was, right? I was like, God, imagine. And I mean, honestly, I'm gonna have nightmares about Brad Pitt and Al Pacino's version of this movie for a long time. Yeah. But imagine a world, right? This is kind of like, imagine if Ingmar Bergman, when he did The Seventh Seal, just had the two greatest actors, right, of this generation and the next. And that's what this movie was to me, right? Like, I know Seventh Seal is kind of a weird one, and it's a little art house, and like, yes, they're playing chess with death and whatever. I believe it's Max von Sydow. But this movie, to me, right? I love that movie.
Max is great.
Everyone who goes to film school, I think you secretly have to like that movie, or else it's like, why the fuck are you in film? If you're not down to like support the films we need to like be a vanguard for, what are you doing?
You should have at least watched one Max movie, Max van Sydow.
Sydow's amazing, Bergman's amazing, but this is what Red October was to me, right? So this is an action thriller, but to me it was Bergman. To me it was fucking David Mamet. It's just guys sitting there and having a battle of wits.
Yep.
Right? Arguing about anything so that they can get the upper hand.
The thing that I was really taken aback about when I watched this again for the 50th fucking time was that I remember there being a lot of back and forth between a Russian sub.
Mm-hmm.
That happened in the middle.
Yeah.
There was no sub after that. It was all.
If you ask me straight up, I don't even remember seeing the sub.
I
know they got shot at and Denzel had to deploy bubbles. That's it. That's all I remember about the sub.
It's because
they were sinking.
There was only 4 of them that had departed that were actually taken over by the rebels, and that was one of them. And I love that moment. That moment was obviously very important because you're not only. Oh God, it's so deep. You're not only crediting the moment of Denzel being the leader, but you're also understanding what happens when it comes to the people involved in this moment deciding whether or not they think he is a good leader.
Yeah.
Because he's immediately thrown in a scenario where he has to start making judgment calls that affects hundreds of people's lives on that submarine. And that's what's so exciting about that moment. So you walk away, they blew up. First off, they blew up the other submarine. Great. But they almost got to hull crushing depth with it's like 18, I don't know, 100 meters, feet, whatever the hell it is. Like, and then if it wasn't for the fact that they killed some of their own people to shut it off and to get the submarine back up, it was like, so the reason why I'm saying this is because Denzel could be seen as a hero or the villain to his entire team in that moment, which is so exciting.
That's the moment, is when Denzel has to say, close the hatch. And the chief of the watch, who, by the way, you're like, as soon as the movie starts, you're like, this guy is parasitically human centipede leech to Gene Hackman's asshole, right? He'll do whatever he says. Yeah, George Zunga. You're like, there's no fucking way this guy has the oomph to fucking disagree. When he tells Gene Hackman, he's right. That fucking crushed me. But this is what's so brilliant. So he takes command. He does an amazing maneuver, right? He wins the fucking fight that Gene Hackman lost moments ago. But he immediately has to become Gene Hackman and sentence people to die. And just the fact that the lights went off, right? This is the all-time best Twilight Zone episode. I think it's called Maple Street. God damn it, I'm so sorry. I'm really bad with names. But essentially the thesis of this Twilight, Heath Benfield will be watching and he'll be mad at me for forgetting this, right? But I believe it's called The Monsters on Maple Street. So essentially the theory is that the lights go out and people start wondering what's going on, and start imagining that everyone else is a evil person that's trying to get them. And all hell breaks loose before the lights just go on. You cut out to outer space and some aliens like, see how fucking stupid and scared they are, right? It's one of the all-time best Twilight Zones. And that's what this movie does. Denzel did everything right by the book. He won the fight. As the Russian sub was dying, it launched one more attack that didn't get them, but caused some trauma. And he had to sentence 3 to 5 men to their deaths.
Yep.
And that's just enough. That moment in the dark where another sailor has died, and that sailor could be fucking me.
Yep.
That means the whole movie. Because then all of a sudden you're like, of course, we all want to think we're these high-minded Denzels. But most of us are probably the guy, hey, man, I don't want to get sealed below deck, right? Like, so the greater battle of what happens, who launches missiles first, you're like, dude, this is my fucking job. And I want to get home so I can be at my fucking daughter's birthday party. The movie operating at both, the kind of great philosophical question and the, hey, man, these are just dudes, is so fucking perfect. They really strike a perfect balance of everything in this movie. But I love that moment. And when he turns on Gene Hackman, right? When Zunga turns on him,
Yeah, but hold
That's
on.
like a top 5 best moment in the movie to me.
But hold on.
Okay. Was I pontificating?
No. I think you're belittling a moment that literally happens 10 minutes later.
I don't want to belittle anything in this movie. I love it. Tell me.
Denzel turning to George, and Denzel going, "Thank you,
Yes.
for obviously doing the right thing."
Yeah.
And George goes, "Thank you, fuck you."
Oh, is that not the best? There's another line I remember being like, that's a weird delivery, right?
Yeah.
But
He
that's
goes,
the best
"Fuck you."
line in the movie. Because this
He
is
goes-
a guy who's just, I'm doing my fuck. You think you're doing your job, but you're like having a power. I'm doing my fucking job.
Yep.
That guy was my best friend, and I chose against him because that's what's right. Fuck you.
Exactly.
You're right.
Exactly.
That is my favorite line in the whole movie.
Denzel goes to him and goes, "Still, thank you." I was
Yeah.
like,
Denzel's like, I'm going to take your righteous indignation and take it for myself.
because later they're all put in the officers' mess together. Right?
That's right. That's right.
They're all in there together. And George going against it, everything that he's known. And on the flip side, one of my favorite actors of all time,
Yes.
Viggo Mortensen. In that moment where they go and talk to him about the fact that he's the cog in them doing what they need to do.
Right. The guy who we saw at Denzel's daughter's birthday party.
So he agrees to it. They put him in the barracks. They put him in the officer's mess. And then there's that moment where Denzel has 2 seconds with the weird phone that goes, and then he fucking picks up the phone. And which is a ringtone. It's a ringtone that no one's.
I'm going to get that as my ringtone starting tomorrow.
And he fucking picks it up. And literally within a 30-second conversation, he reminds Weps, Viggo Mortensen's character, about how important it is for him to not rush to conclusions on this.
Yeah.
Again, throwing in the idea of nuclear holocaust, the idea that this decision is way more than just protecting America. And Denzel's character does such a great job in that moment. And again, I go back to Viggo. Viggo Mortensen's so good in this movie, but he literally doesn't play off of anybody in that entire film.
By the way, just to interrupt you.
Yeah.
How did we not think of Viggo Mortensen as replacing Sean Connery if we recast Hunt for Red October? He's perfect.
Because I had already
Can you
said
imagine
Christoph
that
Waltz.
he's so fucking good, he just gets lost in like, oh, he's one of the other actors. That's how good this cast is.
Eastern Promises needs to be remembered as one of the better films of
Definitely one of the best dog swinging movies of all time. Imagine, though, this is a scene that will haunt me for the rest of my life.
Oh, I'm excited about this.
Viggo Mortensen smoking a cigarette and staring at that fucking combination lock. Do you get the fucking weapon out? He knows he can shut down his friend and the captain are fighting. He's loyal to both.
That's
He
what I love so much
actually
about that moment.
understands both points of views. And weirdly, right, the title card says 3 most important people: president, Russian president, captain of the nuke, whatever. What this movie tells us is that constantly a lower man on the pole is actually equally as important. How many people were involved in stopping nuclear holocaust? He's one of them.
If it hadn't been that moment where fucking Gene Hackman, again, I'm sorry, that moment where he pulls him aside and he pulls the gun to him, and then all of a sudden he goes, "Fuck!" He goes, "I can't shoot you. You're the only one that knows the combination."
That made me mad 'cause it's like he already bitched out. You think he's gonna shoot this?
And then he goes, "But Officer Pierre here," and fucking puts the gun to his head. Like that moment resonates so much with me because it's like
so good.
He knows that to get to Viggo's scenario isn't about killing Viggo. Like he already made his decision, but he pulls this other guy and he goes, "Oh."
But that's the crazy thing is
moment.
that fuck it. Oh god, yeah, that moment gives me goosebumps because what I love too is that again everything in this movie has to operate at more than one layer because again, like you said, when they cut out of the submarine or there's any action, the movie becomes wildly forgettable and boring. But this is a moment where here's a guy, like they cut out for like, oh, launch the bubbles, and like that's like a minute, and they're like, no, we're back into this. So here's a guy who's like my best friend, right? Or a guy that I served multiple times with, and I know he's a good dude. And I was at his daughter's party. And I know for a fact he's not just going to fuck us, right? Like, he's not just trying to fuck up our whole careers.
Yeah.
Right? And then he says, but here's also this captain who I really trust. And Gene Hackman is a completely believable captain that you would want to fight for. And he just is staring at that fucking gun mechanism. But here's what is so brilliant about that moment. He knows that Denzel is right. Right? No matter what happens, it's going to be a bad outcome if they fire. Either the Russians have fired and we're fucked, or we're going to fire and we're fucked, right? I guess the argument is maybe we blow them up first. But if you're wrong, your kid is going to be dead. Your children and family are dead. So he knows. He knows for a fact Denzel's right. He's made his choice. I'll smoke my cigarette. He knows Gene Hackman is not going to fucking blow that private away.
Right.
If Gene Hackman shoots that private, he loses everyone who's behind him. He loses the whole ship. He's not getting the codes because he can't fucking take them.
So you
by
think that
force from
Vigo ends up giving it to him because he's still battling?
Well, I think Vigo is the guy who's like, I'm not willing to make the call. I'm not going to be the guy in the history books that this guy didn't give the timer over.
I do not mean to pivot, but
Sure.
pivot
away.
This was a very important question that I had to ask you. Do you like Gene Hackman's coaching tactics when he says, when there's a fire in the galley and he all of a sudden ran
Yes.
that moment?
Yes.
Okay.
This is what I love too, is that movie is played as Denzel's out jogging, right? Fire breaks out. We got to stop the fire. No, do the fucking drill. And a guy ends up dying. I agree completely with Viggo Mortensen. That guy didn't die because of the drill. I also don't completely agree with Gene Hackman. It's like, well, if he wasn't a fat fuck, he would have lived, right? Like, that was a little cruel. He didn't have to throw that line in. But I agree with Gene Hackman, is that when things are their absolute worst, you have to be ready to fucking take the test.
You don't make decisions when things are all hunky-dory, as he says.
Yeah. But this is what the movie does so well, is that, again, they never paint a character in a corner.
No.
Both sides of the argument are equally valid.
Correct.
Right? Is a fire in the galley an absolutely huge, enormously life-threatening problem? Yes. Is it also true that when the Russians attack, you can't be like, hey, time out, man. We were peeling mashed potatoes. We need a break. No. So, yeah, this is, and that's the thing. If you tilt that fucking scale one way or another and let one guy become the bad guy, this movie does not work.
So let me give you a 2-second rendition of
Take all
my
the seconds
opinions.
you need. Let's go.
When it comes to that moment, when I was growing up, I said, "Wow, Denzel's right." I watched this yesterday, and I go, "Gene Hackman's right." Like,
yes,
because as an adult, I go, "You can't create a scenario that is all hunky dory for everybody. You have to be able to go and you have to react in a smart way for everyone."
Yes.
So that we are well equipped in our minds to deal with it.
Yeah.
And the thing that I understand where Denzel came, he came correct, is that it could have flamed up. We could have had more issues. But in my head, I'm like, I've seen enough war movies where it's like everything goes wrong. I've seen Saving Private Ryan. Everything goes wrong.
Yes.
Like,
and you have a job where you're in charge of people.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's easy to be good at the bare minimums you're responsible for. But
Right.
And again, I don't have a job. I run a YouTube channel, and I just make content, and people call me a fat homosexual on the internet. That's my job, right?
That's totally fine.
And I'm like, hey, you call me whatever the fuck you want as long as you're watching, bitch.
You're good at
So
it.
I'm like, that's good, right? You can call me whatever the fuck you want, just watch, right? But people who have jobs where things are actually on the line.
Yeah.
The thought that in war you could ever have, and this is what is great about this movie. Denzel is the embodiment of the young philosophical argument of this is what an ideal world should be. And Gene Hackman is portrayed as that's great in the books. This is what the world is. And not in a horrible way that makes him the bad guy we should hate and despise. But, hey, man, we've all had a job where it all goes really wrong. And it's like, bitch, I hope you can keep up.
Right.
Because that's who we all want, right? Like, I used to work in Hollywood on sets and this and that. And someone told me once, They're like, there are a bunch of you that can do this job. I need to know who I can spend 80 hours a week with and not want to kill them.
Yeah.
Right? And there is a bit of that in this, which is our job is going to get hard and terrible, and we'll plan for the best, but the worst is going to happen. Who can adjust? I think Gene Hackman's completely right. And if you want to ask my honest opinion, I think Gene Hackman's right at the end of the movie. He got orders. There's nothing that says his orders were not right. If Gene Hackman had launched, I don't think history remembers him as the madman that ruined the world. Well, I mean, history probably would, but people who actually knew what happened wouldn't.
All right, cool. I disagree. I mean, I agree.
Right.
I
Well,
agree
of course,
with.
but that's
I
what
agree
I mean.
with everything
Yeah.
leading up to Gene.
Sure.
Like Denzel is right. Where all right.
The Navy says they're both right and both wrong.
Do you know what I think is really fun though? Is that like it's all about the fact that communication got cut off.
Yeah.
You don't have
No.
this battle.
That is the most brilliant prop in the movie because it's an unfinished sentence that says, you, the audience member, fill it in the way you want. And we're both two tissue paper soft liberals.
Yep.
And so for us, don't ever shoot a bullet. Don't ever fire a bomb.
Nope.
Don't fight. Let's figure it the fuck out. That's us, right?
Yep.
There's no reason for a person to die over whatever's happening in this movie. No death is the best, right? That's us. That's what we're writing into the movie. Some guy is like, hey, man, like imagine this, right? It's like, your policies are this and that, forgiveness. A guy you forgive came out and fucking slit my mom's throat. I'm not for forgiveness anymore.
Yep.
This movie doesn't say that's right or wrong. It says, here's a sentence, man. What's the world you imagine? And I love that the movie doesn't take a second to like wag its finger like, Gene, I will say this. There's a scene in the movie that rubbed me a bit the wrong way, which is at the end of the movie when Gene Hackman's like, I clearly almost started World War III, right? Like, absolutely. Like, indisputably, you're wrong. He's like, well, I gave Denzel the recommends. But then when they're outside, he's like, yeah, I was wrong about horses. And he walks off with his dog like everything's cool. I'm like, bitch, you almost ended humankind. I was like, a little more bending of the knee would have been okay at the end.
Agreed, but disagree because that wouldn't have been Gene Hackman's character. Like,
True.
like that guy.
Doesn't that bother you, though?
No, because assholes are assholes. There will be assholes to the end of the day. Do you think Donald Trump would look at you and be like, I made the wrong call? No. Donald Trump would stand there and be like, Liposano Stallions, I was totally, I was incorrect about that.
The fact that you brought up Donald Trump in the same breath as a Gene Hackman character is the saddest thing that's happened to me in months.
Here's where part of it, Gene Hackman knows he was wrong.
Right.
Gene Hackman placates in that moment.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You think at the end of the movie when he makes the joke about the horses,
Yeah.
he knows for 100% fact he fucked up.
Yes.
And if he had a chance to do it again,
Yeah.
he would make a different choice.
No.
So what the fuck? He didn't learn anything. That's my point.
No. Just because somebody doesn't learn anything doesn't mean that the outcome of what happened doesn't resonate with them. I think that Gene Hackman would be happy with the fact of what he did based on what happened. But
sure,
he's also really fucking happy that it didn't have to go that way.
No.
So I think that the reason why I love that moment so much was because they both had they established that an hour and a half before it happened, where it was like they were talking about horses, right? And all of a sudden they were talking about whether or not Liposano Stallions were from Spain or from Portugal, and they're not. Neither one of them's right, because that's just from like Serbia or whatever.
Is that the joke of them? They're both wrong.
Yeah, they're both wrong. Slovenia. They're both from Slovenia. But Denzel is actually right in the fact that they were born black and turned white.
Sure.
But again, there's a lot of like racial undertones of this movie that we're not.
But I like that it's not brought to that, right? Because Denzel is not shown as, I would listen to your opinion, but you're a black guy. He has an absolute.
You're talking about Gene?
Yeah, Gene and him have a pure respect for each other.
Yeah.
What Gene Hackman does is he looks at him, he says, I know you are an equal.
Yep.
But perhaps more educated. But I am also not a dipshit, and I have my own knowledge, so fuck you. You watch the scene where Gene Hackman is fucking punching him in the face, right? Punching him. Give me the fucking key. Give me the com. Punching him.
No.
And Denzel,
I'll tell you what the line is.
Denzel puts the fucking lanyard on, and he's like, "This is my key. This is my com." It's the rare moment where you actually see the Last Generation star handing the actual fucking keys to the Hollywood Kingdom to him, and you're like, Denzel is so fucking strong in a moment where he's just letting this old dude pound on him. He's so fucking strong and unassailable.
Is there? All right, so I'm gonna ask this question, knowing full well my favorite line.
Yeah.
So I'm about to ask you.
Sure.
What's your favorite line of this movie? What line resonates most with you? Because
it's not the one that I wrote down a line where I was like, did he fucking say that?
So mine is Gene Hackman looking at Denzel during the end of the movie, and he goes, "I'm commander of this fucking ship. Give me the goddamn key." It was enough, like cuss words along with very strong scenarios that make me feel like I would have shit myself if I didn't give him the key. But I love that line.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The moment... God, I can't find the line. There was a line when they were having their...
I'll help you, because I've seen this movie 50 times.
Yeah, so there's the gathering of, like, the four people, and Viggo Mortensen's like, I know this guy can't... He's not trying to fight. And they say something along the lines of, like, well, I fucked a fat girl. Like, you know what I mean? They have, like, one of those, like, country euphemisms. I can't remember what it was, but... The guy who was the
putting on a condom if you're not ready to fuck.
Yeah, right.
No, I get
you don't put a condom on unless you're ready to fuck.
Because they're talking about Russia.
Yeah,
they're talking about
Russia.
Russia.
That, I was like,
it's like they're fueling their missiles. You're not gonna put on a condom unless you're ready to fuck.
Yeah, as soon as I heard that, I'm like,
oh Jesus Christ.
As the Italian chef gimmick I do on the show, I was like, as soon as I heard that line, I'm like, I wish I had written that. That is, but to me, the moment of the movie. The absolute moment of the movie to me has no dialogue. And it is when Denzel has been betrayed, right? And Gandolfini bullies his way into the room. They get Gene Hackman out. And they come back in and take the ship.
You give us a submarine.
Yeah, right? But the fact that he's been betrayed.
You gotta get the submarine.
And he gives the submarine over with, like, class, though, dude. He's still following rules where he's like, all right. Just so you know, here's the status.
Yeah, you're about to shoot me.
He says the fucking statuses. And he gives Gene Hackman back the shit. And he walks around and he looks at the one guy, right? He looks at the black guy with the terrible hairline.
He looks at Weps.
And the guy breaks his view. He looks at the white guy with the fucking serial killer glass. He breaks his view.
Yep.
He walks up and stares at Weps. And Weps breaks his view. In that moment... and there's also a great moment in between where Gandolfini grabs his hand and he fucking bitch smacks him and just never breaks his eyes with fucking Gene Hackman. When I saw that, I was like, dude, you are the fucking king of Movie Star Mountain. Like, that is a moment that so few actors can pull off. And that, to me, that's my favorite scene in the movie, right? It has no dialogue, but you understand every single fucking thing. If you watch just that scene, you get every important lesson of Crimson Tide.
Go watch Gandolfini again the next time you watch it, because he is as much as Denzel's dedicated to denying him. Gandolfini's like, oh, I fucking got you, dude.
Yeah,
like it's so good.
Gandolfini, and you know, Sopranos is a top 5 favorite show of mine. Gandolfini is easily amongst the most underappreciated actors we ever had. Like, oh, he was the Italian guy that did the Mamba. He is so fucking good in every movie I've ever seen. He was so fucking perfect.
Yeah,
and this movie is one of my favorite roles of his.
I can't actually, and it makes me so sad because I could do this 10 years ago. But there's a moment where Gandolfini's on the bus and they're actually talking about famous naval movies. Right. And he's like, he's got the little facial hair and he did a little smile, and he talks to the private where he's like, thanks, get down, you're gonna give me 25 push-ups and blah blah blah. And the guy gets down, he's like, is he gonna be able to go and fit on the submarine? No. I don't know. Like Gandolfini, in my opinion,
James Gandolfini calling other guys
fat. Oh,
classic power move.
I'm looking at that guy. He's not very skinny. So I love myself some Gandolfini, and I think Gandolfini is the thing that I love about the combination is that this is a very much a Tony Scott, Quentin Tarantino hire, right? Mm-hmm. Like you've got a guy that's the enforcer, you've got a guy that's the influencer, and you've got a guy that gives no shits based on the people that he's doing things for. This is the movie to the antithesis, where it's like Gandolfini doesn't give a shit. That George Zunga has not been in a movie that I have cared enough since because he is passionate about the fact that he does the right thing, but goddamn it, apparently that doesn't give you roles. Gandolfini's like, I'm gonna do everything I need.
I would argue
to
with you a hair though, man. Yeah. I think Gandolfini has a truly relatable moment in the movie, right? Gandolfini,
in what way?
Like, watch the way he deals with the privates, right? He's like, hey, man, go back to your... He doesn't fucking start beating asses.
So great.
Like, he's mildly racist towards the guy at the start of the bus, right? But it could just be fat shaming, right?
No,
it's not better, but it's, like, bad.
When they're talking to Vigo, he goes, go back to your fucking station. Go back to your fucking station.
Right, but why is he saying that? So he doesn't have to, like, fucking punish him or beat his ass. Correct. Like, there is a playing within the rules, and you see it at the end when Gandolfini, when they verify the message, right? And Gene Hackman's like, he has the comm. Mr. Hunter has the comm, and he walks. You see this fucking sadness of Gandalf. Like, I am the warrior who gets up to do the job that other people don't want to do. And when you realize that you're fucking wrong, like, for a guy like that to realize, man, I live my life by being absolutely sure in things. That's a real moment of fucking pathos for Gandolfini.
And that's what I love so much about the ending in this movie.
Yeah.
Was that you see everybody cheer when they find out that they don't have to launch nuclear missiles.
Yeah, bitch.
But man, you look at that scene and all of a sudden, like Zen.
Except for Gandolfini, who's just kind of like, oh boy.
Motherfucker.
That like, motherfucker!
No, I shouldn't have trusted him.
But that's the thing, though, right? What I love about this movie is it doesn't do the propaganda thing.
No.
There are people who join the military because they want to fucking fight people they think are bad.
They want to blow stuff up.
You know what I mean? And Gandolfini's one of those, he's like, I joined to fucking fight. And imagine a guy like that who's seen loss and done this and that. That is a hard life, man. Being a soldier is a difficult life. And this is the first time where he's like, it is important. The losses I've seen have mattered, and I will be in history fighting the great bad guy. And then to be like, oh, fuck, man, I might just be a Judas. That's an awful lot to bear, and Gandolfini does it masterfully. He's not, they're dragging him to like a fucking prison cell. He's just sitting there in his own fucking reality. How
great is it when they relieve Gene Hackman of duties, right? Because it wasn't this thing where it was placated on blowing stuff up. It was like, we're doing the right thing. We're doing what was actually told of us, and we're leading you to your barracks.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's so crazy is that you are taking a world issue that affects millions,
still does,
upon millions of people, and you're compartmentalizing it within two people. And we talked about this for Hunt for October's podcast, but it's like, you have to understand that this happens. It happens on a regular basis where two people that you wouldn't think would give two shits have to all of a sudden come to blows to make the right decision.
Well, imagine the stupidity that is America. I know that'll probably get me some tweets, so fuck off. I love America. I'm just making a point.
America's incredibly stupid, and we make terrible decisions on a regular basis.
I'm just saying, man.
Spoken from a tree-hugging liberal.
As a liberal, I'm here to say we could do better, right? But this is the thing. Imagine the stupidity of the world we live in. When real serious things are facing us, right? I lived in Los Angeles, man. And we would see people sleeping on the street. You'd see all this fucking nonsense happening, man. We have wars and whatever. Imagine the stupidity of a country that's like, you know what is worthwhile of our mental brainwaves for like a couple weeks? What fucking bathroom you go shit in? Like, that's the thing. What I love about this movie is it takes you back and it says, hey, man, you guys can do whatever you want that helps you pass the fucking... Like, debating on what fucking bathroom people use is so fucking stupid and childish in the grand scheme of, like, mankind, right? But it's the kind of thing we do because it's a low-stake argument that lets us fucking defend our team. This is a movie that said, hey, man, what if you really think you're a flag bearer for the left or the right, right? What if you had the whole fucking world on the line? That's what this movie says, right?
Exactly.
You're so committed to something, right? Like, it's easy for us to fight on Twitter. Where should a person who's transitioned from woman to man take a shit? That's easy to fucking argue on Twitter. You can make your fucking snide jokes, whatever.
Right.
Imagine we put you in a fucking little tiny claustrophobic tube for 65 days, and people are pointing guns at you, and everything's going awry, and you might not have a radio, but that's your last chance to prove your case. What do you fucking do, man? Are you going to carry your fucking are you still carrying that flag, or do you need a new flag, man? I think one of the biggest problems that faces us as a species is we're so fucking excited to be like, oh, that's what a shitload of people think? I'm with them. You know what I mean? And it's just, this movie says, and this is what's fucking crazy terrifying about this movie, is that, and this is the thing that they don't talk about a lot, right? But, so Denzel Washington wants to just float a buoy so that he can get the message and know they're doing right. That buoy almost gets them killed, which gives Gene Hackman cover to fucking assault his ass, right?
So
and try
great.
to banish him, right?
Oh, such a great
and
moment.
then, so all he wants to do is just clarify, right?
Float the buoy.
Oh, but that's what I mean. So this is saying that no matter what we're doing, right? We can be arguing about where you take a dump, who should be able to marry who, when does life start, any of these fucking political things that we kick around all the fucking time, right? Like the hottest, gun control, whatever. Somewhere out in the ocean, man, there's just a boat that has enough weaponry on it to murder us all.
Yep.
And you have to fucking pray that the two guys out there can come to some logical consensus. And the more and more you live in the world of 2020, I think that's really fucking scary.
And so that was actually a side note from this movie.
Yeah.
Was that there were two areas that argued.
Yeah.
And it was the people that were actually the commanders of submarines compared to the people that were their order givers. And just to give everybody a heads up, the thing that I think is so funny about this movie is that every single nuclear sub commander felt like they had the call to launch those nukes without somebody signing off on it. And just to give everybody a heads up, everyone that was outside of that goes, nope.
Jesus Christ, please stop. Well, I was like, as soon as you have James Gandolfini on your boat, I'm like, your launching privileges should be revoked.
Dude, I'm just saying that, like, whenever
I'm not trying to get all political on you guys, but
no,
I will tell you this.
It's not political.
But no, like, I read a study once, right, that said, if you had taken all the money in World War II, right, that was spent on tanks, ammunition, guns, transportation for troops, whatever, you could have cured world hunger at the time 20 times plus over, right? Something like that, right? Like, the amount of money we spent on bullets to kill each other, you could have fed the whole fucking world for like 100 years. And this is what the movie does so well is, I think it's so easy to take pot shots at guys that are like, I served, and my grandfather served, and my kids served, so you should respect soldiers. That is a sad group of people that I think we often make jokes about unfairly, which is like, oh, those fucking, right-wing hick whatevers, right? Those are people that are putting it on the fucking line in a way that we're not. And so, yeah, man, I think they do fucking deserve respect. And this movie does a great job of, hey, there are those of you guys who have served forever, and you deserve respect, and you're soldiers, right? You're American soldiers. You're protecting us on the front line. And there are those of you, like guys like us, right? Liberals who think we should never have a gun, all guns should be destroyed to make more fucking Masters of the Universe toys, whatever we would fucking say. I think that's probably the best use for them. Mm-hmm. But what this movie never does is says one of you's wrong. It just says, hey, man, being a human is fucking complicated. And please don't fucking blow each other out of existence.
I'm not trying to ask for much.
Yeah, right? Like, just let's not fucking murder each other, man.
So my question to you is, what was your favorite takeaway from this movie, though? Because you liked this more than Hunt for October.
Hunt for Red October was a bit too much the movie I was afraid it was, right? Okay. Whereas, like, a little too slow and a little too my uncle's favorite thing. Like, I don't give a fuck about the ins and out of how the Navy works, right? This movie, to me, was a perfect high-tension morality tale between two of the greatest actors who have ever lived.
Right.
And it delivered on every fucking metric I could ever imagine for a movie, right? Crimson Tide to me is among the greatest films I've ever seen. Unreservedly, right?
Oh,
maybe not a top
awesome.
10, but like it is among the greatest. You can make films as good as Crimson Tide. You can't make a lot that are better.
I'm so happy.
You know what I
said
mean?
that.
Like I
That's great.
fucking Crimson Tide, fucking it's a fucking perfect, almost perfect movie to me. It's no Beethoven, but you know what I mean, right?
It's
Or
no.
Men in Black.
Yeah. You know,
My
I get
perfect
it.
movie theorem.
It's no Operation Dumbo
Yeah,
Drop.
it's mathematics. I'm not hating on Crimson Tide. It's mathematics. But yeah, what I love any movie that just says, "Hey, man," because to me, any movie that's not somewhat examining what it is to be alive as a human is a waste of time.
Well,
Right? And this movie just says it's all fucking complicated, and whatever you think, you should spend more time being introspective. That's what I most appreciate in this movie.
for the sake of making sure that we're not running over too much, I
I don't
have
give a
to.
fuck.
I have. Great. No,
We can
I'll-
talk for 4 hours if you want.
if we talk as much as I've watched this movie, we'll be here until July. But my question to you is that if you had to, so imagine today,
Okay, here we go. Yeah.
you had to go and recast Gene Hackman and Denzel. Who are you recasting to?
Yeah. All right. If I had to oh man. All right. Let me hear yours. I like to hear yours first because you're catching me off guard, right? You're not giving me any pre-notice. So when you think Kevin's list is better, he's thought of this. All right. If you're recasting Denzel, who are you casting?
Michael B. Jordan.
Fucking awesome choice, dude. Is there anything Michael B. Jordan is not awesome at?
No.
Yeah, he's the guy that my wife wishes she was banging and the guy that I would gladly let bang my wife. Like, he is a fucking perfect human being to me. It's like him and Lady Gaga are like the two perfect humans. I love Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
That's a great choice.
Thank you.
Holy shit, that's good. All right. If I was casting, I'm going to butcher his name, man. I'm so sad. God damn it. What's the name? Lakeith. Oh, I'm going to butcher the name. Okay, do you know the actor who was in Get Out and one of my favorite, my phone just, I can't look up. One of my favorite movies of the last couple of years was, God, what is it? The telemarketer movie. All right, so he was in Get Out, right? He was the actor who had the Lakeith Stayfield?
Yeah.
He had the little fucking hat on. He had gotten bought by a rich white lady. He was like, hey, ha, ha, ha.
Yes.
They take his picture. He's like, get out. He was in a movie. Oh, Sorry to Bother You. Have you seen this movie?
Sorry to Bother You is one of the best movies of last year.
It's the fact that movie just kind of came and went is mind-blowing. It's one of the best movies since the year 2000.
Lakeith Stanfield.
That would be my Denzel.
Ooh.
He's so fucking good, and I would watch that guy
Yeah,
do
boy.
any role ever.
Yeah, boy. Okay, so,
good.
the other part. So Gene Hackman's would be Gary Oldman.
Ooh, damn, that's fucking good. That's hardcore. All right, I have to assume Daniel Day-Lewis would not be interested.
No, he's not interested in shit. Not a submarine movie.
Let me throw you a curveball that might work.
Is it Peter Dinklage?
No, I already pulled that trigger. It's Matthew McConaughey.
Ooh,
I think that could work.
that could
All
definitely
right.
work.
He's so
You're not
fucking
wrong.
smooth. You're like, I could see the warmongers piling in behind him.
Tell me a movie where he's played the ultimate badass. So the asshole, the guy that fucked everybody over.
You could argue Mud, right? That it was kind of a very small narcissistic thing to steal a guy's wife.
The reason why I'm saying Gary Oldman is because literally from The Professional, you're like, fuck
Right.
that guy.
And then you're like, he went on to Winston Churchill, so he's plenty accustomed to roles where he just ends
Yep.
the world.
Yep.
Right? Like, not that Winston Churchill ended the world. I don't want you history nuts coming at me either.
My number 2 would be Robert Downey Jr.
I saw Doolittle, man. I'm out. Anything that's not Iron Man, I'm out. No, I'm just kidding.
I've never seen Doolittle.
Jamie Foxx
As Denzel?
as Gene Hackman.
Mm,
Dude, I'm telling you. That might be really good.
that'd be fun.
That might be really good. Or, I got it. What's his name? Michael Shannon, who was in Shape of Water.
Michael Shannon can be in every movie.
You could
Ever.
cast him in any role
Oh,
ever, and
Michael-
you will 1,000,000% have my money.
Griffey, Michael Shannon as Gene Hackman is the best up here. Boom.
Here's the question,
That
though.
is my
If
favorite
Michael Shannon's
decision.
like, guys, you have to help me in the world, would you be like, I saw this coming. I saw your face and I saw this. Right? Does he have that like every man? Or like, let's not in the... Dude, we fucked up. It's Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston is the next Gene Hackman.
The fact that Bryan Cranston is not in every movie that involves an older white guy to make hard decisions and be vocal about him is crazy. Breaking Bad.
Him and Steve Carell are the guys we should be looking to now. Those are your Gene Hackmans. Because they're both so fucking menacing, but can also be good enough that you're like, I would follow that guy.
Imagine Bryan Cranston going, I'm commander of the goddamn ship. Give me the goddamn key.
Yeah.
Like that. Bryan Cranston can pull that off.
Bryan Cranston could pull that fucking off, dude.
I love that.
Yeah. No, for sure. Now that Kevin Spacey's gone, there's like a huge fucking crater, right? That a guy like Bryan Cranston should fill.
And Philip
Bryan
Seymour
Cranston
Hoffman.
should
and
take...
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
That's what I mean, though. Yeah. There are room for the Cranstons and the Carells to take those roles that used to just be like guaranteed locks. You know what I mean?
I love those answers.
Man.
Where could Crimson Tide have been better, in your opinion?
Honestly, if you ask my opinion, I don't think you can make it much better than this. Like, if you had to press me, honestly, if this is one of those movies you're like, I don't know that I have an easy scene where I'm like, that could be better. If I really got pressed, I'd say I don't need any other subs. I just want to keep it. I never, ever, ever want to see the outside of that submarine. Keep everything close up. Like, by the end of the film, I want the fucking camera in Gene Hackman's nostril. Keep it fucking close. Never, because the battle with the other sub means nothing to anyone, right? It does give an excuse for why Gene Hackman can take the ship back, so I understand that. But I don't need to ever see that. Don't ever cut outside of the submarine. That's the only minor critique I would have, but they made one of the best movies ever, so I feel ashamed critiquing it.
Well, let me throw this out there.
All right.
I know we have to wrap up, but
you keep saying that. We don't.
For everyone that's listening, number one, I have to make this really prevalent. Hans Zimmer is a top 2 to 3 composer. Yeah. John Williams obviously is number 1.
He can't fucking touch John Williams, but is he not number 2?
Hans Zimmer has to be number 2. Hans Zimmer won a Grammy for the score.
It's a great score. It's unbelievable.
I would listen to this before I had to go into my practice for 2 days for football, where I definitely got beat up.
I love the idea that a middle school wineman's like, how am I going to make the team? Crimson Tide scored! Hell yeah, dude.
I'm sorry. I love this score so much. So I'm just trying to say Hans Zimmer needs to get credit because
he fucking should.
And this movie made me appreciate all the movies that he's done.
The only other guy in the class, right? It's Williams, Hans Zimmer, and James Horner.
Yeah, Horner. Yeah,
Horner's right there.
Yeah,
Horner's right there. That's it. That's the 3.
You can make a point for. I'm not gonna get in composers, but yes, that's your class.
I'm bad with names, so fuck them.
Nice. Hackman's speech makes you want to run through a wall at the very beginning.
Yes, it does.
When he talks about Alabama, sir, I need a George Zunga to absolutely repeat every last line of what I just said. Because
absolutely. You know what's funny, though? I thought about this movie. You know what I love about this movie, too, is do you remember the movie The Last Castle?
Yeah, one of my
Gandolfini versus Redford?
Oh,
are you telling me
movies.
That in that movie, Gandolfini did not just do Gene Hackman from Crimson Tide?
Yeah.
It's the exact same role, and it's awesome.
So there's a moment in this movie that made me think of Josh Griffey, and that's where they were all at their table together.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the legitimacy of nuclear war. And Gene Hackman goes, sure, drop that fucker twice. And I was like, that is such a Griffey fucking answer in that moment.
That is a Griffey answer if it's anything other than violence. I am so fucking... It's weird because I think because I spent so many years as like a bar bouncer and like getting in fights at bars and shit, they're like, I am so anti-violence in my old age. It is absurd.
So this bled into the fact that I believe that Hackman was right with how he ran his.
You cannot say, other than the very ending that tells you his guess was less right than Denzel's.
No.
That's a straight 50-50. He did nothing wrong in this entire movie.
A very big part of my notes was apparently we can't have any submarine movies against anyone other than Russia because no one owns a fucking submarine.
Yeah. Who else has submarine? Britain? You're like, Britain's not a fucking struggle.
We can't be
like a British Monty Python movie. No one wants to watch that.
Budapest has just launched their one submarine.
There's one sub. Granted, they have to pedal it with the same bikes you do it like Orange Theory.
So I just want all of our listeners to understand it's going to be a fucking minute since you have another submarine movie.
It's U.S. versus James Cameron. That's the second biggest fucking name.
You're not going to get a Canadian submarine that's coming around and being like, oh, we're covering Nova Scotia and you got to be fucking ready for us, man. And just to round this out, the last thing that I wanted to mention was Gene Hackman delivers lines better than 99% of the actors of all time
who've ever lived.
And there's this moment where he and Denzel are arguing, and he goes, "I'm commander of this fucking ship. Give me the goddamn key." In the way that it resonates, it fucking echoes through eternity. Yeah. It's one of my favorite lines, and I love how he delivers it. And again, I'm on Denzel's side, so I love how he just stays stagnant in that moment. But like Gene Hackman saying, "I'm commander of this fucking ship. Give me the goddamn key," was so great.
How about the point when he goes, "So shut the fuck up!" on the comm, and everyone's like, but no, this movie, more than any I've seen in years, made me so fucking miss Gene Hackman. I watched this movie and I was like, that guy was so fucking good for so fucking long in so many fucking movies.
Yeah.
And I think we all, like, we just grew up in an era where we were lucky enough, like, there's a glut of Gene Hackman. Like, we'll just be fine. And even late stage Hackman, right? Like Tenenbaums. The fact that that guy's not doing movies anymore. I was like, that is truly a loss for the cinematic audiences, right?
Right.
And I'm glad we got Denzel because I think he's inarguably the best actor of his generation. He's inarguably one of the top 10 greatest actors we've ever had. There's something about Denzel where you're like, he is the cooler than every person who's ever lived movie star who kind of plays Denzel. Gene Hackman was this fucking unbelievable chameleon of, I can play the best every man in any small town, right?
Yep.
You know the guy I'm talking about? Like, I'm the best guy in this fucking town.
Give me Hoosiers.
Right.
I can coach a basketball team. Yeah. And then give me submarine.
Yeah.
Give me the admiral of the submarine that makes the decision whether or not the world lives and dies.
To the Tenenbaums, to the conversation, to the French Connection.
But
Popeye Doyle, you're like, oh, God.
The common thread is that he is the important cog that makes the decision.
And he's the guy who never made it through unscathed. He was never the guy that's like, everything's good for me, so I'm here to fight. He always was nicked up, beat up, but he still, when he's on the screen, you're like, that's the fucking guy I want to be. And that is the pure fucking unadulterated black magic that fucking is Gene Hackman.
So
and
good.
Watching him literally hand the lanyard and then hand the con to Denzel like I was the fucking man. And that shit's not deniable. And I'm dropping my fucking massive old man nuts in this movie. But you're hanging with me, kid. You're the next guy. I mean, you could argue Tom Hanks all day, but to say that there's a better movie star in that, maybe Tom Cruise. It's like Tom Cruise and Denzel neck and neck. But I would say Denzel did more better than Tom Cruise. And watching him literally hand the lanyard and the con over to Denzel, that's an extra layer of fun for movie lovers. So, guys, that's it for Crimson Tide, man. I hope you loved it as much as me. Again, I am fucking truly ashamed that it took me this long to see what is now inarguably one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. So, Kevin, I want to thank you very much for bringing us Hunt for Red October and Crimson Tide, man. I love doing double feet. I'm sorry I kept you so long and made you drink all these drinks with me.
I'm getting Uber, so you're fine.
Yeah, right.
my car's here at your house.
I have a road trip tomorrow, so I'm sure this will all be fine. Guys, as always, if you love the show, please take a second, leave us a rating and review, especially on Apple Podcasts app. That helps us out enormously. Find us on all your social medias. Please tell us the movies that you would like to hear us talk about, because those are the movies we want to talk about, man. It means the world to us that you guys are invested in the show. Also, you can find us on YouTube. Our channel is Nerd Alchemist, plural with an S at the end. So you can see our faces along with hearing our so sensual voices. Kevin, man, I can't thank you enough for our Paradope double feature. For the Film Alchemist, I'm Josh Griffey.
I'm Kevin Weinman.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Down Paradope.